South Korean President Moon Jae-in heads to Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan to win their support for his diplomacy with North Korea and to build closer ties with the region. And with conglomerate Kumho Asiana to sell Asiana Airlines, analysts are pointing out potential buyers who include SK Group, CJ, and Hanwha. It's 4:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning into our afternoon broadcast. I'm Devin Whiting. Today marks the 5th anniversary of one of the darkest days in South Korean history, the sinking of the Sewol-ho ferry. 304 people died that day in 2014. Most of them were students from Hanwha High School in the city of Ansan, just south of Seoul, who were on a school trip to Jeju Island. A memorial service began about an hour ago at 3 p.m. at a park in Ansan. Some 5,000 people are taking part, including the relatives of those who died and government officials. There are hundreds of other memorials across the country as well. Now, when the ferry sank 5 years ago, the place where the first bodies were brought on shore was Paengmong Port in Korea's southwest corner near Mokpo. Our reporter Won Jung-hwan is there, along with hundreds of people who have come out to remember the victims. So, Jung-hwan, what's happening down there today?
Hi, Devin. I'm now at the Paengmong Port, where the bodies of the victims first arrived to be handed to the families and friends. More than 300 people died when the Sewol-ho ferry first sank in the waters of Jindo exactly 5 years ago of today. And to remember those who died, Paengmong Port, which is the closest port to the site of the disaster, still sees a stream of visitors who travel a long way to pay respects to the victims.
We are now in our second year of high school, and most of the victims from the incident that happened 5 years ago were the same age as us. I feel really sorry for their loss, as they would have had hopes and dreams like us.
Thanks, Jung-hwan. Now, you're there with the families and friends of the victims. In what ways are they expressing their loss today?
The pain for the families and friends of the victim is likely to continue much longer than we can possibly imagine. Near at the port, there is a container facility which is set up to be used for the Paengmong Memorial Center, a makeshift venue to commemorate the victims. At the center, group photos of the young victims with big smiles on their faces are hung, instead of the usual portraits used for mourning. I had a chance to hear the father of Cho Chan-min, one of the students who died in the disaster.
Nothing is revealed yet. Well, the only thing that what we want to know is why our children had to die from that incident. That's it. But nothing has been revealed yet.
Indeed, many still feel core questions surrounding the disaster remain unanswered. What caused the sinking and why didn't the government initiate the rescue mission immediately? But some say the collective mourning and reflection on the disaster has changed Korean society. The recent successful tackling of the wildfire in Kaesong and Sokcho is representative of such changes. Indeed, some could say the Sewol-ho ferry sinking has left a legacy that citizens' lives and safety should come above anything else. That's all from me, and back to you, Devin.
Thanks, Jung-hwan, and of course our hearts are all with the mourners today on this tragic anniversary. Now, in the days after the Sewol-ho ferry sinking, the previous administration designated April 16th as National Safety Day to help build a safer country. And to mark the 5th anniversary of the sinking and National Safety Day, an event was held this morning at the government complex in Sejong City. Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun gave a speech remembering those who died. It was attended by officials, civic groups, and ordinary citizens. Some 300 government officials, members of civic groups, and citizens attended, and they pledged to ensure safety in schools, workplaces, and transportation. In other news, last week, North Korea's Kim Jongun said he's willing to meet again with U.S. President Donald Trump if the U.S. takes what he said is the right approach. Now, President Trump says things are moving forward with Pyongyang. The U.S. Secretary of State, too, says his teams are working with the North. Kan Young-woo reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump says talk is okay with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, adding he does not need the process to move too quickly. During a speech in Minnesota on Monday local time, President Trump reiterated that North Korea's denuclearization is moving along and his relationship with Kim is very good. He said talks with Pyongyang are moving along perfectly and there's a lot of constructive things going on without elaborating on the details. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, meanwhile, says he prays for the day sanctions are lifted from North Korea after complete and verifiable denuclearization is achieved. Speaking to reporters in Texas on Monday, Pompeo stressed, however, that sanctions will remain in place until Pyongyang dismantles its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. In regards to Kim Jongun's statement last week about his willingness to have a third summit with Trump if the U.S. comes with the right attitude and appropriate method, Pompeo said he appreciates Kim's comments, adding that he would love to see North Korea's denuclearization before the end of the year. Reiterating that Kim Jongun has made a commitment to denuclearize, the U.S. Secretary of State pointed out that his teams are working with North Koreans to come up with a path forward so they can reach their ultimate goal, the denuclearization of Pyongyang. Progress toward denuclearization has seemingly come to a halt after Kim and Trump failed to reach an agreement at their second summit in Hanoi in February. Kanyoung, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in is heading out on an 8-day trip to 3 countries in Central Asia. His focus will be on shoring up economic ties with them and winning their backing for his efforts to denuclearize North Korea. Shin Se-min reports.
President Moon Jae-in will be on the road for more than a week visiting Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. He hopes to improve relations on the economic and political fronts while earning support for his administration's peace drive on the Korean peninsula.
The 3 Central Asian nations the president will tour are some of the major partners of the administration's new Northern policy drive.
For 3 days from Tuesday, the president will be in Turkmenistan's capital, Ashgabat, where he will sit down with President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov for talks on strengthening strategic partnerships, including making it easier for South Korean firms to make inroads into the country. He will also tour a $3 billion petrochemical plant site in Kyanli that was built by a global consortium led by Korea's Hyundai engineering company. President Moon continues on to Uzbekistan on Thursday for a 4-day stay. The South Korean leader will hold a summit with the president there and address parliamentarians in a bid to improve bilateral ties in fields such as the medical and tech industries. The last stop of President Moon's 3-nation trip ends in Kazakhstan. The South Korean leader will hold a summit with his newly inaugurated counterpart, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, as well as the country's first president, Nursultan Nazarbayev. They're expected to talk about the so-called Kazakh model of denuclearization, something that allowed the country to accumulate wealth in return for ditching its nuclear weapons. It's also a model U.S. President Donald Trump pitched to North Korea for its own denuclearization. President Moon will also attend a repatriation ceremony for the remains of the 2 Korean independence fighters who were buried in Kazakhstan. He will also push to bring home the remains of General Hong Bum-do, a fighter who stood against Japan's colonial rule of Korea in the early 1900s. On his first trip to the region, the president hopes to help strengthen friendly relationships with the 3 countries and lay the groundwork for future partnerships under the new Northern Policy Initiative. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, President Moon has asked Parliament to move ahead with 2 nominees for the Constitutional Court, specifically to approve reports on their confirmation hearings last week, which lawmakers had not done by Monday's deadline. According to the Blue House, the president has asked that the reports for Lee Mi-sun and Moon Hyung-bae be approved by this Thursday. Opposition parties have protested Lee's appointment because of her husband's activities on the stock market, which Lee denied having any part in. President Moon can still appoint them even if the reports are not approved. And because their predecessors' terms end on Thursday, it's likely the president will appoint them on Friday. Almost 1,000 years of French history went up in flames Monday night. A fire destroyed large parts of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, including its iconic spire. Now the world is mourning a tragedy for the French people and the world's heritage. Hong Yu reports.
Despite flames devastating large parts of the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral, firefighters were able to save the main structure of the historic building. The secretary to the French Interior Minister said both towers of the Notre Dame Cathedral are safe hours after flames were seen spreading to one of Notre Dame's iconic rectangular towers. Yet large parts of the roof already appear to have been burned, and the spire collapsed during the fire. At least 7 fire trucks and 400 firefighters have been working to put the flames out, both from inside and outside the building. Police have urged people to avoid the area. Parisians and tourists watched in horror as the flames spread, and witnesses at the scene said ashen embers fell from the sky as the flames progressed through the cathedral.
It's a really terrible situation. It's more than 356 years of history going up in flames. It's further impactful given that it coincides with the birth of Leonardo da Vinci. It's a history that is coming to an end of a global heritage architecture. It's incredibly unfortunate. This is something that will have the world mourning.
It's 1,000 years of history. It's France, the national symbol of France that has been damaged. It's a powerful symbol for us Christians. It's Holy Week. We are coming up to Easter. It's a strong symbol. We are completely destitute. Notre Dame is also a huge cultural and historic heritage site. For me, it's France that's been touched. France is burning.
The fire is known to have begun before 7 p.m. local time, and police are saying it probably began accidentally and could be linked to the ongoing restoration work at the 850-year-old building. The Paris prosecutor's office has opened an investigation into the devastating fire. French President Emmanuel Macron at the scene described the fire as a terrible tragedy and announced that he will launch an international fundraising campaign to rebuild Notre Dame Cathedral starting from Tuesday. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
And South Korea's President Moon has offered support to France after the Notre Dame fire. In a tweet on Tuesday, he said the damage is a loss to everyone. He called the landmark one of history's most important treasures, and he said the world will work together to restore it. He added that the fire will not be able to break the French spirit of freedom, equality, and philanthropy, and expressed support for President Macron. K-pop continues to blow up in North America. The boy band BTS have another #1 album and are set to perform at the Billboard Music Awards. Some of their compatriots, like Blackpink, have some major shows coming up too. Sewol-ho has the details.
BTS has reached #1 on the Billboard 200 once again, reaching another milestone in K-pop history. According to the official Billboard website on Monday, the boy band's new album, Map of the Soul Persona, released last Friday, has already hit the top of Billboard's main album chart. This is the 3rd time a BTS album has scored a Billboard #1, after their last albums, Love Yourself Tear and Love Yourself Answer, achieved the same feat. BTS will be participating at the 2019 Billboard Music Awards next month, collaborating with US singer Halsey. This is the 2nd year in a row that BTS will be performing at the Billboard Music Awards. The group has also been nominated in the Top Duo Group category and as well as in the Top Social Artist category. And it's not just BTS in the K-pop spotlight. Other K-pop stars such as Blackpink and NCT 127 are on the rise as well. Last Friday, K-pop girl group Blackpink made history by being the first South Korean artist to perform at the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival. They will also appear on Stephen Colbert's CBS talk show on Thursday local time. And on the same day, another boy band group, NCT 127, will appear on ABC's Good Morning America ahead of their tour of 11 North American cities, which kicks off on April 24th. Sewol-ho, Arirang News.
One of Korea's biggest conglomerates, Asiana, is going through a major cash crunch and has decided to sell off its flagship unit, Asiana Airlines. Several names have come up as potential bidders. We won't know who's taking over for a while, but our Kim Dami takes a look at what these companies could bring to the table.
Several South Korean conglomerates have been mentioned as potential buyers of Asiana Airlines, mainly based on their financial stability and the ability to afford the airline's $880 million price tag. Among those mentioned is SK Group, the nation's third largest conglomerate. The telecommunications and chips giant has denied all rumors of being interested in taking over Asiana Airlines, and SK chairman Choi Tae-won gave no comment when asked by reporters. However, market analysts note the group's sizable capital resources, including SK Hynix, and a fundamental growth strategy as the main reasons for the group's possible interest. The acquisition would also make SK the second largest conglomerate by assets, which is another tempting reason for SK Group. Hanwha is another potential bidder, considering the group owns an aircraft engine manufacturing unit. Gaeseong, the owner of South Korea's Jeju Air, may also be interested, as Asiana Airlines may be a good addition to further expand into the aviation sector. For Shinsegae, purchasing the airline may help the conglomerate grow its duty-free business. While other conglomerates, including CJ Group, are denying any interest, experts say the denials could just be a business strategy to prevent the sale price from soaring.
Interested corporations have already calculated if taking over the company is beneficial to them. They are remaining silent so that they can work on getting a deal in their favor.
The chairman of the State Development Bank, Lee Dong-wol, suggests that Asiana Airlines affiliates, including Busan Air, will be included in the sale, and that Kumo Asiana's main creditors will come up with a detailed financing plan before April 25th. As any plans to take over the heavily indebted airline are still in their infancy, it will take at least 6 months before we know which group will be Asiana Airlines' new owner. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
Time now for a look at the market action here in Korea and around the world. And for that, we're joined on the line by Daniel Yu, global strategist at Kiwoom Securities. Thanks for making time today, Mr. Yu.
Thank you very much.
So we're in the middle of a record-breaking string of wins on the Kospi, 13 sessions now, and the first time it's happened in over a dozen years. Take us through the trade today, Mr. Yu.
Yes, as you said, Korean market rebounded from the early mornings of down trend to end up with 0.26% rise. As for the Kosdaq market, it was showing a correction of 0.23%. Clearly, there's been mixed signals between the large caps and small caps. As the Chinese market shows some corrections at the beginning of the session today, that resulted into Kospi getting a little bit slowed. And also, U.S. market yesterday had shown some losing steam and closing down at a little bit a down trend. Clearly, the lack of catalyst made Korean market to correct a bit, but continuation of Chinese market rebounding and showing that some of the economic recovery happening in China allowed Kospi to rebound as well. Also, because of there's been a lack of the catalyst, Korean market seems to be moving on the basis of theme. The sales of the Asiana Airlines and also the corporate governance issues are making Korean market to focus on these themes. Macroeconomic environment is not making any headwinds at this point in time. Continuation of low interest rate environment is a key issue, and Korea will be watching out for the stock trading tax cuts of 0.05% point, and also possibility of supplementary fiscal budget coming through in the second half of this year of 7 trillion won.
Yeah, so a lot of factors supporting this run, but we've seen, you mentioned a correction in China. It's been a really good year in Asia so far. It's a good first quarter in the U.S. as well. What do we see happening abroad?
Yes, Chinese market showed some quite sizable correction yesterday and the day before. But today, after the morning session, the Chinese market ended very strongly. It seemed like 3 days of correction, but again, it ended with only 2 days correction. Shanghai as well as Shenzhen market is up more than 2% closing today. Since the beginning of the year, Shanghai was up 30% and Shenzhen was up 40%. Correction seemed to be a necessity, but it seems that the markets are continuing to go up on the basis of economic recoveries might be happening in China. The correction that happened yesterday and the day before was because of the liquidity reduction concerns. There's possibility of no interest rate cut coming through. That has resulted into some corrections. But it seems that the economy seems to be bottoming out, and that is allowing the market to go up even further. As for the U.S. market, bank earnings are coming through. Some of the numbers are coming in and good for the JP Morgan, but for other companies like Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs seems to be lack of the catalyst. Anyway, the Trump is talking about the 5G investment, and this allows the fourth industrial revolution stocks to go up further. So there's a mixed signal as well in the global market as well.
Sure. Now, here in Korea, one issue we'll be watching Tuesday, Washington time, is the U.S. Treasury's report on foreign exchange. Korea has been listed on that as a potential currency manipulator. That's expected to stay the same. What are Korean investors expecting to see in that report?
Right. I mean, if you look at the Korean market and Korean won, recently the Korean won have been moving slowly upward, meaning that depreciated to above 1140 level. This is clearly the weaker than expected trend, and that's resulting into a observatory status, a manipulated status for the time being. Of course, there won't be any discrimination because of that, but nevertheless, it is an issue. U.S. Department of Treasury delivers to Congress a semi-annual report on macroeconomic and foreign exchange policies of major trading partners, and clearly some of the countries, including China and Korea, are listed as a possible manipulator. But nevertheless, in terms of any kind of the trade dispute, I don't think that there will be any kind of the additional tariffs coming through for the Korea. For this case, this will be just an incident where the possibility of the won appreciating could happen in the future. That will allow more of foreign investors coming into Korea and allowing the market to go out even further in the future.
Well, we'll have the latest on that report once it comes out. Thanks, as always, Mr. Yu, for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Now, Korea will be launching a service this December enabling customers to use a single application to access their accounts at different banks and to make payments. A senior official at the Korea Financial Telecommunications and Clearings Institute says computer systems will be built and tested between May and October, and fintech firms will be able to access the system from December. It's expected to not only make banking a lot more convenient, but also to lower fees to around 4 U.S. cents per transaction, just a tenth of the current amount. The average amount of cash Koreans carry with them is falling rapidly. The Bank of Korea did a survey last year on 1,100 heads of household, and over 98% of them said they do carry cash, but the average amount was around 69 U.S. dollars, down 33% from 2015. The BOK attributed the decline to the more widespread use of fintech like mobile payment services. The number of households who decreased the amount of cash they carry in the last 12 months was up 19%, while only 4.5% had more cash. A new poll shows most of the South Korean companies that had business at the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex have gone through tough times since it was shut down 3 years ago. The Korea Federation of SMEs surveyed 108 companies that once operated at the complex. More than 85% of them said business has gotten worse since the complex was shut down in 2016 after North Korea's 4th nuclear test. The main reason, they said, was they're running out of money. All the firms said they want to go back to Kaesong, so the Korea Federation of SMEs has called on the government to do more to get it reopened. South Korea's National Pension Service, as a major investor, is strengthening its supervision of companies that have raised the salaries of their executive directors. The Ministry of Health and the NPS say the Pension Service will exercise its voting rights and oppose plans that hurt shareholders or that negatively affect the fund's profits. This includes remuneration that's excessively high based on considerations like the company's size. According to Chaebol.com, around 300 registered executives at South Korea's top 10 business groups received an average salary last year of around $1 million US. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thanks for being with us. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.
Daily news you need to know.